Hi guys, and welcome back to JavaScript Playground. In today's video, we will talk about how to select HTML elements using query selectors. Query selector allows you to use CSS selectors to select HTML elements. It is the new way in JavaScript to select HTML elements. There are two such selectors, query selector and query selector all. The query selector selects the first item it finds. Say, for example, you want to select the first item with a certain class. So instead of returning all the HTML elements matching that class, it returns only the first one. Whereas the query selector all selects all the HTML elements matching the selector. Say, for example, you want to select all the items with a class. You can use query selector all. Let's try some examples to understand these better. So inside these articles, so we've got a class for article, but not for image or this h3 or a paragraph tag. And if you check here in the CSS file, we are using combinators to select these elements. Now let's try selecting all the images inside this block card. So we can do document.querySelector. Again, this is a DOM method, so that's why we have to use document dot and query selector all. And now we can write the CSS selectors here. So dot blog card space image. Remember, here you will have to write dot or hash depending on whether you're working with class or IDs. All right, let's wrap it in a console log. So console.log, and let's print it on the screen. So coming here, let's inspect this. And as you can see, we've got a list of 3 items. Because there are 3 cards, so this blog card matches 3 items, and inside each card there's an image. So total 3. And if you open, it's the same thing. You've got the height, you've got the width, the class name, etc., etc. So query selector all gives us a list of 3 items. So it gave us all the items which matched. Now let's try using query selector. So let's just copy this and paste it here. Let's just remove this all from here. Let's save it. And now as you can see, we've got the list of 3 items because of the query selector all. And for query selector, we just get the first image. So that's the difference between query selector and query selector all. Similarly, if you wanted to select a specific item, say you wanted to select this header with an ID top bar, so you could simply write hash and top bar, and you can do the same thing here as well. Let's save it. And now as you can see, it still returns a list with just 1 item, so the top bar. And the query selector also returns 1 element, the entire header. All right. Now you must be wondering, we can do the same thing with query selector all, as well as get element by ID and get element by class name. So which one to use when? All right. So because query selector and query selector all is relatively new, it is not supported by Internet Explorer 7 and below. So if your users will be using your website on Internet Explorer 7, then you should not use query selector and query selector all, but instead use get element by ID and get element by class. So if you try to run query selector all or query selector in Internet Explorer 7 or versions below that, it wouldn't work. It will give you an error. That was one point. The next point is speed. So which one is faster? So get element by ID and get elements by class name are more than twice as fast as query selector and query selector all. So if you just want to select one element and that element has an ID, then use get element by ID. But if you want to select multiple elements based on some CSS selector, then you can use query selector all. And that's all for today. I hope this gave you a better understanding of query selectors. But if you have any doubts or queries, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me on Twitter. I'll add my Twitter handle in the description below. Bye and take care.